I'll get to that one. Now, these are screenshots. Is that showing up okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, this basically tells you how to form the pattern. Gives you an idea of the key, I'll say, because this is what, if you keep this formula, it actually opens up 30 rows or 30 chapter rows of 7 books only.
See, I don't get that at all. That's what I need to have you understand, because you're basing everything on that. So I need to see it.
Okay, so chapter 35.
Yeah.
In chapter 35. Now there's chapter 35 in many of the books in the Bible. But chapter 35 with the verse 16, well, there is only 7 books in the Bible that have that.
Yeah.
The next one, here, let's just go back and I'll go to the pattern. And this is represented in the first chapter. Chapter 2 doesn't have any 7 books. It'll have 6 books and it'll have 8 books, but there was no particular verses that represented only 7 books. So I just carried on and I went through the Bible and I got to chapter 40. So there's 30 rows, but it's 1 to 40.
Oh, what do you call a row?
This would be 1 row. I don't know if you see my mouse or not.
I do.
Okay, the first line is 1 row.
So that is all the books with a 1.
With verses 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, and 45. And there's only 7 books in the Bible that have, in the first chapter, that have those particular verses.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite the test. But yeah, you could look in any other book, pick one other than these books, and see if there's these verses with chapter 1. And I can pretty much guarantee you won't find them.
So 37, Numbers 1:37.
Yep.
Deuteronomy 1:37.
Yeah, and 38 and so on.
But you don't, those are the only ones you find, 37 through 38.
Yep, they're the only books.
Or 45, I mean.
So it's a different kind of formula to understand, but once you understand that key issue there, be able to formulate how many, say chapter 2 has 22 verses, and there's 222 books only, or chapters, I mean, that hold that verse.
Okay.
So now, what books they are, you would have to research that.
So you found the patterns in every book and put them in a category, right, of their self, like Numbers 3, 2 Samuel 3, Proverbs 3 have these same verses, 33, 34, 35.
Right, and they're the only 7 books. Only 7 books in the Bible that have those, that chapter with those particular verses.
Did you look for patterns with 8 or 9 or 10?
No, I stuck to 7 because I was deep into like the 7 spirits of God and looking at, you know, the 7s throughout the Bible. It's so vast that I just really concentrated my mind on that. Yeah.
Okay.
But when I tripped over this, I was actually in my Bible, on that Bible program, and I got to the end of the program and it would give me numbers. So I clicked on chapter 1, verse 1, clicked on chapter 2, verse 2, and I got to chapter 1, verse 7, and the count on the books, I seen it change in the corner of my eye, and I looked down and it said only 65 books have chapter 1 with verse 7. So then I looked to see which book it was, and it was Psalms. Psalms 1 only goes to verse 6. So it eliminated itself, basically. And then as I was doing it, I had to actually write it down on a piece of paper.
Oh, yeah.
So I wrote down these on a piece of paper, and then I retransferred them to the computer, typed them out. And I double checked them and make sure everything was straight, and I put them in order to the Bible, because the program actually didn't give me the order of the books to the Bible. It gave me alphabetical order. So I had to straighten them all out to the order of the Bible, like Numbers, Deuteronomy, in order of the Bible. Now, these red books are the first time that they show up. So line 1 is obviously the first time that these particular books show up in this pattern. So when we get to line chapter 3 here, the second line, you see Numbers is not colored.
Yeah.
It's already been called for up here.
Oh, okay.
So this is a new book.
New books. Okay.
And this is the first time Proverbs show up, and this is the first time Lamentations show up. Now, Lamentations, like I said, verse 33 is the 77th letter, and it's representative of only 7 books, which hold verse 33 in chapter 3. And it's the only time it's in the pattern, only one time, Lamentations. Now, that didn't really dawn on me, but as I was coloring these, when I got to Kings here, I highlighted Kings and I turned it red. And then I noticed, if you look here, you see an upside down triangle.
Oh.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
Right, and there's only one New Testament book within that. Mark 1.
Mark. Yeah. In the triangle, right.
And when I seen that, I thought, okay, I got to read that. I've read it so many times. It's like it's just a passion for me. I love this. So I've actually read every book in here with its verses to see if there was a correlation between the verses. And I didn't see anything that really spoke to me. It actually gives you half a genealogies once in a while, particular names, mentions the Son of Man, it mentions the law. It is an interesting read if you look at it that way. So here I ended up kept going until I covered all the books. And what happens is, there's only 30 books within this pattern that make up this whole 30 rows of 7. Now, when I say 30 rows, there's each one is a row. Here, here, here. There's 30 rows, and there's only 30 books. Now, you'd probably know more than me in the idea of what 30 represents or anything like that. But, you know, I kept these numbers in mind, and when I come across them again, like there we have 30 rows with 30 books. So it keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, all the way down to chapter 28. And these are the last books that are represented. So now they're all called for. So every one of this next line has been already, like this is the first, Genesis 25 is the first time Genesis actually showed up in the pattern. So, and then after that, Genesis keeps repeating itself.
Wow. So
that triangle is I looked at that and looked online about a triangle. Now, triangles can represent certain things, and if you ever seen the Da Vinci Code,
Mm-hmm.
which is mixed with a bunch of truths and non-truths. It's a movie, right? But the representation of a triangle that they tell you is actually true. It actually represents the womb or rebirth. It also actually represents water, where God's grace comes down from heaven. The upside down triangle. It's one of the oldest Christian symbols in Christianity. Is an upside down triangle.
Can you verify that, Ivan?
Is Ivan there?
I'm here. I'm looking at that. I'm following along. Verifying that is a matter of.
No, because we're recording, I will actually start from the top and I'll just scroll, and people can pause it and go through every line if they like.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to write it down, test it.
So Lloyd, show me that triangle one more time. I was watching what you showed that to Michelle,
Okay.
and just show that to me one more time. How you seeing that triangle?
Now I put these in order to the Bible, all these lines.
Right, and I got all that. Mhm.
Now numbers up here in the corner
Yeah,
connects to Second
Okay.
Sam,
gotcha. And
and
then
it goes
second
down
King.
to Second Kings,
Uh-huh.
and then goes back up to Lamentations 3,
Okay.
and then this would go to here.
Mark.
It's not exactly
Okay.
straight. I could move it over a bit, but Matthew 1 is the only New Testament book within there.
So that's an inverted triangle. Okay, I get you. And
Yeah.
and tell me, I heard you say something about it being like a womb-like.
Pardon me?
Something about it being womb-like.
Yeah, it's like the womb
Yes.
of birth,
Yes.
and it's also known as a chalice.
Yeah, okay. I got you.
Yeah, if you could look it up on the internet and see what it means, an inverted triangle. And it's God's grace from heaven being poured out. It
Okay.
represents, in the Catholic idea, is Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit,
Right.
for obviously reasons of three corners.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few understandings of what it is.
Okay, and then that speaks to your heart. That's what you're saying, right? Heart.
Well,
I mean-
I was actually surprised that it was there right at the beginning of the
Okay.
As I was marking these down. I thought, okay, it's something I'll put in the back of my mind.
Okay, and now I was thinking about you earlier and had in my mind I had this. So I was letting my imagination loose, and I speak sometimes as a pastor, and
Okay,
sometimes
okay.
as a teacher,
Right?
and sometimes I have these prophetic ideas that come to me, and especially true when I'm releasing myself from logic. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking about you earlier, and I love you, brother. I want you to know that, okay? So you accept my words just as a brother that really loves you, okay?
Sure.
You understand?
Good.
Okay, good. Because there's no criticism whatsoever.
Oh, I've heard lots of criticism, believe me.
I'm sure you have. Yeah, I'm sure you have. Can I just, do you mind if I just ask you a couple questions? Because I have to go here in a minute. I've got bees coming in. I'm a beekeeper, and I've got some bees coming in. I've got to get them all prepared and ready.
Oh, cool.
And I'm seeing that inverted triangle. I'm just going to let it go. I just want you to know that I'm going to be praying about it more, Lloyd.
Yeah,
Because,
if I could, Ivan, before you leave, could I just share one thing that you might just find very interesting within this pattern?
okay.
Now, these 30 books that make up the pattern that I've highlighted in red, I wrote them down here.
Yes.
And you see there's 22 Old Testament books only,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and 8 new, which are the 30 books that make up the pattern.
Okay.
Now 22 representing the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
Yeah.
And if you really look at this, you'll see that the first 7 books line up perfectly before it skips the book of Ruth
Interesting. I see
and
that.
then goes on to 2 Samuel.
Yeah.
And then in the 8 books, the first 7 books line up perfectly.
Mhm.
And then Ephesians is the next book. So it does it again.
Huh.
Now, there's the 5 scrolls. Now, this is what I wanted to show you in particular. The 5 scrolls in Jewish tradition, not to get them mixed up with the 5 scrolls or the 5 books of Moses.
Yeah.
The 5 scrolls.
Yep.
Now here, the first 7 books line up perfectly.
Mhm.
The 8th book is not in the pattern.
Hmm.
It skips the book of Ruth, but it's one of the 5 scrolls. So what I did was I gave it the 8th letter of the Hebrew.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
then I went on, and these are all in the pattern here, 8 books. And then the 17th book, Esther, is not in the pattern, but she is one of the 5 scrolls,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Here we go again. These 3 books are actually the poetic books in Jewish tradition. Ecclesiastics and King Solomon's Song of Songs is not in the pattern. It skips them. But again, they're both the 5 scrolls. So now we have 4 of the 5 scrolls here. We know that Lamentations is actually one of the 5 scrolls, but we have 4 of the 5 that are separating these books, which I thought, okay, this is interesting. This is why I gave them the numbers of the Hebrew. And King Solomon being the 22nd book lines up perfectly with the Hebrew alphabet. So as I went on, that's what it says in Hebrew. When you look these scrolls up, they're read in a certain order in the synagogue.
Yeah.
Start with Song of Songs, Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastics, and Esther. You could look it up on Wikipedia.
Right.
So I put them in order, the letters in order to the way they're read.
Yeah.
And that's what it says, will be revealed. Now, I took a screenshot of the, right here. You can see that it says revealed up here. And the Bing translation gives me will be revealed in Hebrew. And this is what the pattern's producing.
But I don't understand how you got those letters.
Oh, you don't?
No,
Okay, are you familiar with the 5 scrolls at all?
not really.
No? Yeah, there's, where exactly? Oh. Yeah, there's 5 scrolls in Jewish tradition. And the Song of Songs is read on Passover in synagogue. Now, when I put these 22 books of the Old Testament in order to the Bible that are in the pattern, it gives me the first 7 books, perfect order.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Okay.
the book of Ruth is not in the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
She's not represented in the pattern at all, except
Right.
this could be her representation. This
Oh.
is her job to separate the first 7 books.
Uh-huh.
So she
So
ended
the 8th
with,
letter is the hay, is the het. Okay.
so the 8th letter, yeah.
Okay.
She gets the 8th letter.
And Ruth is one of the 5 scrolls she's read during Pentecost,
Mm-hmm.
No kidding.
right?
I would have to look that up. I did read it though.
Didn't know
Yes.
that. Yeah, it's read on Pentecost by the Jews. The Jews read that book.
Yeah, yeah. This is when they formulated these books together is beyond me. I couldn't even find a date when they were actually put together. They're
Yeah, it
very
was more like the 8th century, I think it was. It's the megalod. It's the It's at Pentecost that Ruth is read. It's an awesome thing.
Mhm.
So Shavuot. So it's that's interesting that Ruth isn't there.
Right.
In
That
fact.
does.
And then these next books here that are in bold, 8 books.
Mhm.
And then the book Esther is not in the pattern. So it actually skips Esther
Mhm.
pattern. And she is one of the 5 scrolls also.
Okay.
Now, if you want to elaborate on
17th letter.
Esther.
Okay.
What are those 5 scrolls?
He's going through them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the
Song
5
of
scrolls are
Book of
Ruth,
Ruth,
Esther,
Book of-
Ecclesiastics, Lamentations, and Song of Songs.
Yeah.
Those are the 5. But Lamentations is in the pattern one time. That's what made me look at Lamentations so closely, because there was an importance. Because why isn't Ruth doing what these books are doing? And to have 4 out of 5 not show up in the sense of being in the pattern, but represented as this, and be able to spell out the words will be revealed in Hebrew, is just a phenomenon. It's strictly from heaven. Like, almost fell off my chair actually when I first seen it. And then it really intensed me to really keep looking.
So how do you spell out it is revealed or will be revealed now? I'm just getting the 2 letters.
Right there.
What is the rest of them?
Now this letter here has a final letter,
Uh-huh.
sulfate
Mm-hmm.
sulfate letter.
Yeah.
When it represents at the end of the word, it changes its form. You probably know all that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
How did you get the sheen and the pay? Though I don't get that. Where does the sheen and the pay come in?
The sheen,
The W.
the teeth. Yeah,
Yeah.
the water.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the sheen or the sheen.
Okay. Well, it's the 21st letter,
Okay.
right?
Uh-huh.
In the Hebrew alphabet.
Right.
And then this is the 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet,
That's the Tav. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm going through the pattern, like all these books that are highlighted are the only 22 books. And here is the last of the 22 books found within the 7th pattern.
So why is 21 selected?
21?
Yeah, why did you choose 21 and not 7, 18, 19, 20?
Because those are in the pattern. Proverbs, Psalms, and Job are in the pattern.
So these are the ones that aren't in the pattern. Ecclesiastes?
Right. Is the 22nd book of the Bible.
Oh, okay.
Or is the 21st, sorry. And then King Solomon is the 22nd letter or book of the Bible.
Okay, and those aren't in the pattern?
They're not in the pattern. They separate the 22 books as a whole.
Okay, all right.
And you line them up.
All right, I'm getting it now. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it would skip particular books, and they just happen to be the 5 scrolls, or 4 of the 5 scrolls. Now, if I go back here,
Or the 5.
Just to ask you a quick question, Lloyd.
Sure.
The megalot, sometimes they call it Rabbah, meaning great, the great 5-book scroll. Have you read much of? Have you looked into that? It's a rabbinic in the nature of itself. It's rabbinic, and the rabbis wrote a ton in that. I think you know that, right? They wrote a lot of commentary on it. It becomes like a homiletic they read to the synagogues. And I don't know if you know that they read these certain scriptures. I think it has to do with the Jewish blindness. They're reading these passages to people that are blind to the facts. Like we don't find it surprising at all that Ruth gets read during Shavuot. It's not surprising at all. I mean, that's talk about a harvest passage. It's gigantic.
Mhm.
And the fact that the Jews even see Ruth as a prophetic book may indicate why it's not part of this pattern that you're seeing. This is left out. Although I acknowledge your take on it is interesting. But how the Jews use the megalot is much different than you might think. When I say Jews, I mean rabbinic Jews.
Okay.
So the rabbis use it for control purposes. In fact, lately I've been thinking about how the rabbis, have you ever heard that song, Let My People Go? It's like from the Ten Commandments, you know.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
Heston is Moses, let my people go. Well, you know.
Yeah.
In
Even
a way,
Lamentations is a.
yes,
Yeah.
in a way, the rabbis have a stranglehold on the Jewish people. You have that key and that lock. At you showed that before you came on, that lock and key was there, and I found that has a lot of juice as far as I'm concerned for me. But you're bumping up against rabbinic traditions.
Mhm.
Where you are. I think it's interesting. I think there is a key and there is an unlocking there.
I know one thing for sure is when I do share this with some people, I've had people actually look at me like I was, totally off my rocker. And then I've had other people that realize that there was a pattern involved in this. And it's not something I can make up. I'm not smart enough to make up such a lie. Like, these are the things that this pattern is creating, and I'm just pointing my finger at it.
Yes.
Right.
So when you say it's my pattern, that's a something that hits me to the idea where I couldn't take credit for such a thing.
Mhm.
The pattern has been set in the Bible.
Seeing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand. But anything
It's strictly the Lord. Like, I know that the chapter and verses have been placed in the Bible back in the 1200s, and they didn't come together until the Geneva Bible in 1560.
Convention.
That was the first Bible to have chapter and verses of the Old and New Testament.
Mhm.
So through the centuries, these things have been compiled,
Mhm.
where one man can't take credit for putting these. Only the Lord knew there was going to be a Bible with 66 books, and how they were going to be, like, anything that this pattern produces. Like, within the pattern, there's only 11 rows that have one verse. Now, 11 times 7 is 77 again. So I can strictly say that there are 77, there's 11 chapters within the Bible with one verse only, that hold only 7 books to each row. So that's 77 books, 77 verses, or book chapters, I should say, sorry.
Mhm.
It does get confusing, and believe me, to explain this is very hard to.
Very difficult.
It
Mhm.
is.
That's why I had to see it. I had to see you show it, and I could be able to ask you questions.
Yeah. Well,
But-
here, if I can go on the 30 books. Now, this page, when I separated the 22 books to the Bible and whatnot, there's 30 books. And then I went on to count the chapters. So 30 times 7 is 210. So there's obviously 210 book chapters.
Right.
So out of the 210,
Mhm.
there's 153 of them that are Old Testament.
Mhm.
And then the remainder 57 are New Testament books for the New Testament. or book chapters we're talking now. So
The
I
number.
looked at this and I actually talked to a guy in the university. I worked in the university as a maintenance guy actually for like five years or so. And he was a student in mathematics, and I showed him this. And because if you take 22 and divide it into 153, you end up with a 7, or you end up with a -7.
Mm.
And if you divide 8 into 57, you end up with a decimal of a +7. So by proving this, I took the 7 out of the 57 of the New Testament. I'm actually pointing with my finger. I should be using my mouse.
Yeah.
So you can get the gist of this. So this 57, this 17, I took this and I moved it over to here to 53, making it 54. So if I go on to the next, so now we have chapters 54 and then 56, because I removed one and put it into the 54. Now, if you divide 154 into 20, or 22 into 154, it equals 7 perfectly, just by moving one. And the New Testament does exactly the same thing. If you divide it by its number of books, 8 books, divide it into its chapters, 56, it equals 7 again, just by moving one. And what inspired me to do that was where Jesus talked about the fish in the net.
Yeah.
He said, cast your net on the other side. So when I did this, I was getting the idea, like, am I casting my net on the other side?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's cool.
Because 153 is the only time it's mentioned in the Bible to those fish in that net. And when Jesus said that, when I was doing it, it dawned on me.
Yeah.
And then to have it equal 7 is just a phenomenon.
Wow. So
what's the
how do you,
concept?
what does it interpret to you? I think it has everything to do with the Jews coming to see the Messiah. I mean, the fish, Christianity, in the net. Yeah, in the net. And that's a computer program. The net is a computer generated information.
Yeah, no kidding.
So
even the cloud, right?
Yeah, it takes a computer to figure this out. And so like you're saying, they need to find these things on their own, and it is to be revealed. It is to be revealed to them.
Yeah, Daniel 12 says knowledge will be increased, right?
Yes.
And it has like never in history.
Yeah. And the wise will instruct many. So, you know, that's interesting. The Lord spoke that to me this morning. The wise will instruct many. And that's what we're seeing. So many people being instructed in how to research, how to.
Oh, there's so much that could be brought to the table, even ELS codes. How would they actually go through all these 1008 verses and realize that, okay, let's look at the strain of these and find the ELS. Is there ELS? I would be just flabbergasted just to see the work involved in that. But
so what do you mean by 1008 verses? Can you explain that?
Okay, well, there's 210 book chapters.
Okay.
And when you add up all the pattern, if I go back here, pattern. So here we have a particular amount of books. We have nine books times 7 each book.
Okay.
60. So there's 63 verses within that.
Hey, all right.
Just that one line, the first line.
Adding up each one of them.
And so on. So as I did that, I finished the math, double checked it.
Yeah.
And here is one of the rows where it has one verse. And if you go through and count which ones have one verse, you'll find that there's 11 of them. You keep adding them all up, and there's 1008 verses within the pattern.
1008.
Yeah.
Wow. And so that's how you knew,
Yeah.
that's how you told me, why you told me about 1008. You wanted me to do some research on that because you double that as 2016. And you knew that in 10 years time, when you discovered this, that there would be something magnificent come about in 2016.
Yeah. I waited and waited. And yeah, election time, right?
Yeah. When Trump
Yeah.
stepped on the scene. Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea 10 years prior to that when I was.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm doing a study on your number, and it actually goes into what Larry's researching right now about the Amorites. So Larry, you're on trail for what I'm studying and have been studying before you mentioned that. And then because of what Lloyd sent me, I was able to access it from another perspective, but it was already there. It was already there, 2016. We've been all over that, but I hadn't really seen the 1008, which is a half of it. And that makes me think of the two books, like this, half on each side.
Yes. That's why I watched your videos, and I actually went into the archives and looked at more, and I just had a hunger, like, okay, there's something to be understood here. And I just, I had that passion to really listen. And you've gave me a perspective on Gematria. Like, I have used Gematria to the idea of, okay, meaning of words, or where these words are located and how they're.
Yeah.
And I looked at a few sites that would give me these certain verses, and I would read through them. And it's opened a lot of doors and gave me.
Well, Gematria is only one aspect of what we actually study. That's a small portion of. We just look for a continuation of the theme or the number we're following. And if it happens to land in verse count, word counts, one of the pillars, it doesn't matter where it is to me. Sometimes it's the Gematria. So you see, when you say Gematria, it's just like, well, that's just one aspect of what I study. It's actually a whole language. Like you're looking at a lot of different aspects, all the books, and you're finding a pattern. That's exactly what I do. I take the whole and I find a pattern. Okay. And once he establishes the pattern, now you can follow it, you see, and wherever it leads is where you go. It ain't you picking and choosing, like, it's not my pattern, it's his pattern.
It is.
And it's his message. Yeah. In the end.
Yeah. Well,
awesome.
Back to Lamentations, I got to the verses 33, 34, and 35, considering Lamentations is one of the 7 books. And I looked at the acoustics on that, and each letter represents or each verse represents a letter. Now, 2 of them are the same because it falls in a spot where, because there's 66 verses represented of 3 of the first letters, and so on in threes to complete the alphabet. This is here. It says to you.
So the 33rd, 34, and 35 verse.
They have acrostic letters.
There are letters that are represented in the chapters themselves.
The verses.
Oh, the verses.
Those 3 particular verses in Lamentations 3. And these are the verses that represent 7 books.
So Ivan was concerned about the Megillah or Megillah that might just be a bunch of Jews stories. Okay, so, but they're using that to control the people with. But this is a picture behind the actual text and their interpretation of it, and showing you that it's to be revealed through this, a mystery, which when you interpret it, when you go through and take each one of those letters of those verses, and you put them in a line and they make an actual sentence, that's crazy.
That is. And I mean, it doesn't stop. It mentions Jesus Christ in the
That's what I was going to say. Then it says Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I'm like,
it did. It said that.
I know, lots of times.
Anybody can test it.
I gotta tell you guys, we all know 1st or 2nd Corinthians that the wise are going to confound the mighty.
Yes.
Or the simple are going to confound the mighty.
Right.
Well, when you look at it, just look at the right-hand side of the screen, or however yours is showing, you're looking at the simple. We're not the brightest people on earth, okay? God has called us and used us.
Yeah.
But what is happening is, now that we're coming to the Jews, you're coming to the brightest people on earth.
Yeah.
And so God is literally taking we, the simple, to teach confounding them and to teach them. So when you tell them, look, use this pattern and it says Jesus Christ is Lord, or Michelle goes and says, look at this, you can't have this without combining what's in the Old Testament with what's in the New. And that's precisely what you're doing again in your pattern here.
Yeah,
it's all that same thing. And the way that you capture the Jews is you show them in their own language.
That's right, Larry. You said that many times.
What is the actual fact of the matter? When they see the pattern and they see the letters, they're going to start running way ahead of us. They're going to go faster than us.
Oh yeah.
But because they're bright, and then they're going to say, "Oh my God, look at, he got this pattern. Well, what does it mean over here?" And they're just going to take off. But they're always going to know that it was us that showed them that.
Yeah.
The simple. And that's the way, Jesus is doing that, not just with us. He's doing it with all of Christianity and the wise. That way, when we get to the kingdom and the ultimate kingdom, nobody's going to glory in his presence and say, well, I was really smart. I figured that out. The Jews, the brightest ones, didn't get it. It took the simple ones to show them how to do it. And then those are going to be used by God to teach the whole world. In other words, God hasn't even opened up. Everybody thinks evangelism is to all the world. We're just at the very beginning of true evangelism. When we get the Jews in, then they're the ones that are going to be blessing the whole world. And that's throughout time.
Great.
So we got to look at ourselves as as the simple, but that's who we are. That's what he tells us. So I just receive it. I accept it. And I think we all do. I'm not so bright, but I figured out this and I could do that. And I can't tell you why, but it just works out that way, and that's what you're telling us. So that lets me know that your code's right on. And I didn't have enough of that on my own. I don't have lots of time to study. So what I've seen is just very limited. And I'm real thankful I got to watch your pattern as you developed it.
Oh, what a blessing today was it. I had a little trouble getting on my computer this morning. It's not as fast as some of the other ones, but I didn't want to miss this one. This was I've been, there's things in that Bible is a living word, and it's chock full of nuggets. And I think we're just starting to see some of those things. And as we grow in grace and knowledge, and like you said, Lloyd, about knowledge being increased in the end times, and it's here. The computer age is a tool that we've been given to see into the Word of God, and it's a blessing. And bless your studies. And I know it's a lot of effort and time consuming to search these things out. And like you say, you double check it. And then like Michelle says, she checks it and checks it and checks it. And so we keep getting confirmation, and that builds your faith. And it did with me with that one liner right there. I thought, oh my goodness, when the Jewish people get a hold of this, they're just going to just light up. And, you know, that light bulb is going to go on. That light bulb is going to go on, and they're going to get on board, and they're going to hit that Beret Hadashah and just go places, and it's going to confirm the old and the new is, you know, like the numbers in Strong's bleeds over into the New Testament. And so they're going to find out that it all goes together here. We're brothers and sisters in the Lord. And we've got a wonderful future. And I've got just enough notes here it went right to my spirit when I heard that. I know Michelle had hers, you know, that she heard in her spirit. But when I saw that one, and like I say, it's different to hear it and believe it. But when you sometimes when Michelle says a certain things, I know it's right, but every once in a while I look it up, and it does something. And so when you see these things and you see multiple things over and over and over, it starts to ring out. Like Michelle said, I think it was last week, that this Bible is rigged.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rigged. I mean, it's come on, you know it is. You can't get these things just by like coincidence. You know, it's there. And bless your sweetheart. Oh, what a wonderful study.
Amen.
Well, no other questions or thoughts. We'll just say goodbye for now.
I haven't.
Okay. Bless you guys.
God bless you all.
Amen.
Bye.
Bye now.
God bless.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.